This video is sponsored by Lenovo and Intel. What can this and this learn from this? You may not be aware, but I have quite a history with Windows. As a kid, I used to build Windows PCs. I did have friends, but that was one of my hobbies as well. I used Windows both personally and at work until about my mid-20s. And back then it was a case of things either working or not working, and if you've built it yourself particularly, things definitely not working properly. And then I discovered the Mac and, well, the rest is history. But I do get to try Windows PCs occasionally today as part of this job, and they're really good. And the Yoga 7i from Lenovo is a great example of that. But more importantly, it shows what Mac users like myself are missing out on, because the Yoga 7i does quite a lot more for the money than this. And just to clarify, this is the M2 15-inch MacBook Air. It's my daily driver and I love it, but this has really caught my eye. Okay, so let's talk specs about the Yoga 7i. So the version I have here is running the Intel Core i7 processor. It's got 16 gig of RAM, a 512 gig SSD, Intel Iris Xe graphics, a 16-inch display with a 360-degree convertible design, and it has up to 11 hours of battery life. It also has loads of ports, which I'll come on to in a moment, and it runs Windows 11. And that set me back 799 quid, which for someone who spends a lot of money, horrible amount of money sometimes on MacBooks, is rather refreshing. So you can work, you can game, and you can create on this thing. Now that isn't unusual, you can do that on most laptops these days, but the Yoga 7i does have some very neat tricks. And it's those tricks and the stuff that you get for your money that I think can really teach the MacBook Air a lesson or two. The Yoga 7i does have some fairly serious gaming capabilities, but I'm not a gamer, so I'm not going to focus on that part of it today. However, if you are interested in what this Intel chip can do, let's geek out for a second. Intel's performance hybrid architecture is a leap forward in multi-thread performance. And this makes a massive difference to gaming and creative work. And that keeps your gaming free from interruptions, because there's no need to worry about background tasks slowing you down, which is the last thing you need during a gaming session. And there's even more multitasking power and E-cores to play with, which means basically you can stream video, multitask, play music, and encode video while gaming. So that's right, those background tasks are still happening, but they don't bother you. There's also Intel Smart Cache, and that basically means expanded cache sizes to accelerate the processor and give you better performance and higher FPS. And for all of the tweakers out there, there is enhanced overclocking, which means you can get the most performance out of this chip for gaming. There's also broad memory flexibility, which means you can use either DDR5 or DDR4 RAM, and you get nearly 3 times faster connectivity without the interference thanks to Wi-Fi 6E. It's basically a bit of a beast. Anyway, back to me over there. So in this video, I'm just going to focus on the function of this thing and how it separates itself from the MacBook Air, because that's what interests me. The first thing, and I've mentioned this before about certain Windows laptops, is that it has a touch screen. Now, is Apple ever going to launch a touchscreen version of one of these? I don't think so. And that's a shame, because whenever I get a Windows laptop with a touchscreen, it's really satisfying to use. And I know some people disagree with this and say, why do you want to reach out, take your hands off the keys and start touching the screen? But for me, it starts to feel really natural. It doesn't feel forced. I just reach out and touch things and move them around the screen, and it adds this other dimension to using Windows that you don't get with macOS. And the great thing about Windows 11, unlike macOS, obviously, is that it is built for touch, so most of the touch targets are big enough. You don't kind of find yourself trying to hit tiny little things on the screen. For instance, I love the Windows snapping feature where you can move windows and apps and things around the screen and arrange them as you want. It's great for productivity, and again, it's just something that is a lot more fiddly on the Mac. macOS has never really got that stuff right, unfortunately, but on Windows, can't believe I'm saying this, it works. However, with the Yoga 7i, there's another dimension to this, which is a pen. Now, I'm not much of a pen user on a laptop because for me, it feels, I don't know, that part of it does feel a bit strange, reaching out and touching the screen with a pen. However, it's not really intended for this setup, for this kind of traditional laptop mode. The reason for that I'll come on to in a moment. Before I do that though, facial recognition. I really want Face ID on the Mac. It is such a convenient way to get into any device. You just look at it and you're in straight away. Windows Hello, which is the thing that Windows uses to log you in with your face, works. It's fast, it's seamless, it's reliable. It's the one thing actually, whenever I start using a Windows machine like the Yoga 7i, I go back to the Mac and think, I want facial recognition. Okay, on to the Yoga 7i's party trick and the reason for its name, really. This looks like a normal laptop at the moment, doesn't it? Nothing unusual about that at all. However, and this is where, if you're a MacBook owner, this feels really strange. It feels very unnerving. If I do this and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, it becomes a tablet. And this is where the pen makes sense, because suddenly you have a massive 16-inch tablet with a pen and with a full operating system. Now, I'll be completely honest, I wasn't sure about this to begin with, because I've seen these kind of laptop come tablet devices and thought, really? But when you start using it in tablet mode and then realise that you can very quickly go back to it being a laptop with a proper keyboard and a trackpad and everything, it works. And it makes me look at this 15-inch MacBook Air and think, I won't do it, don't worry, but imagine if this I won't do it, I won't go any further. If this folded over all the way around the back and became a massive iPad, that would be pretty cool. It would be one device that you carry around. That's the great thing about the Yoga 7i, and that's the reason it's called the Yoga, I suppose, because it can do lots of very intricate poses and stuff. It can be a laptop and it can be a tablet, but it doesn't stop there. And that's because it has two other modes. One of them is stand, so you can basically prop it up like that, and then you've got this kind of tablet with a built-in stand that you can angle to pretty much, in fact, any angle. It goes right down there, or you can have it here. I don't know, if you're working out on the floor and you need to have a big screen to do your workout from, or if you're watching your favorite YouTuber and you just want to use a big screen for it and not have it as a laptop. There's also the tent mode, which is when you do this, which resembles a tent, kind of. I'm not sure when you'd use that mode, but again, could be quite useful. But it's that switch between tablet and laptop that is so good. And if you're wondering, you don't lose the pen because it sits in this little holder which goes into one of the USB-A ports. Very clever design, and speaking of design, I do like the Yoga 7i's look and feel. It feels premium for the money, and that hinge feels fantastic. Once you get over that initial, oh, what am I doing with my laptop, you get a lot of confidence from this thing. It feels like it can take some serious stick. Wouldn't recommend throwing it around and doing that sort of stuff, obviously, but they've clearly kept in mind the fact that people are going to be going between that mode and this mode quite a lot, and for that reason it needs to feel robust. The other thing that the MacBook Air could really learn from this Yoga 7i is the ports. On the MacBook Air we get MagSafe for charging, fantastic, 2 Thunderbolt ports, great, and a headphone jack. On the Yoga 7i, like so many Windows laptops, you get loads of ports. We get 2 USB-C ports, a HDMI port, a headphone jack, and then on this side we get 2 USB-A ports. People still use USB-A accessories, so it's nice to have that on there on such a thin laptop. We also get a micro SD card slot, which is a little bit strange because it would be nice to have a full-sized SD card slot, but I'll let them off because that's there, and you don't get any of that stuff on that one. The other thing that I love about the Yoga 7i is the price, £799 versus £1,399 for this. And the performance that you get for that money on the Yoga 7i is fantastic. It's built on that Intel Evo platform. It's got the 13th generation Intel Core i5 in there, 16 gig of RAM, a 512 gig SSD. Let's not forget that the base model M2 15-inch MacBook Air has 8 gig of unified memory and a 256 gig SSD. Whatever your thoughts on Apple Silicon versus Intel, that is quite a downgrade on what you get from the Yoga. It's at times like this that I think, what is keeping me and other people welded to the Mac? Don't get me wrong, I love the Mac, I can't move from it, but when I try something like the Yoga 7i, there's a part of me, my Windows past obviously, that thinks, are you spending too much money on this stuff? 1,400 quid versus 800 quid. There is a big difference in price here. And no matter how much of an Apple fanboy you are, you can't ignore or deny the fact that you're getting more for your money with the Yoga 7i. You're getting more RAM, you're getting more storage, you're getting more ports, you're getting more utility because it turns into a tablet. It's got the touchscreen, it's got compatibility legibility with a pen, it's got the facial recognition. It just makes me stop in my tracks and think about this stuff, because if you're not an Apple fanboy, if you're not completely welded into the Apple ecosystem like I am, the Yoga 7i is a really tempting proposition. And when I think about what I do in the Apple ecosystem, it's copy and paste between devices, AirDrop, AirPods, switching between different devices very quickly. It's also software, so Final Cut Pro, for instance, is what I use for my video edits. That only works on the Mac, and also things like Ulysses, which I use to write my blog posts. There's no Ulysses version on Windows. And then there's just fanboyism. That is definitely an element here. You know, I went from not enjoying Windows back in the mid-2000s to finding the Mac, and that has kind of clouded my judgment of Windows ever since. I'm really impressed with the Yoga 7i, and I think if you, like I say, if you're not the Mac fanboy that I am, I would give this serious consideration. This has been quite a different video for me, but if you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel massively. And if you're not subscribed yet, think about hitting that subscribe button, because there is some seriously good stuff on the way. And if you've still got some time, keep watching for a link to another video that I think you'll find very interesting.